Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host, founder of Talk Cosmos, Awakening Conversations for an Authentic Life. And today is a very stupendous moment in time. It is the 20th of March. And in this year, 2022, that is a spring, vernal, same thing, equinox, when the sun has shifted from the south with the Tropic of Capricorn heading across our equator, where the sun is at the highest, down up to the Tropic of Cancer, which is at the north. We are celebrating Astrology Day. It's worldwide, it's international, it's everywhere, just like astrology in the sky. And I'm really excited too, because I have a very special panel. Many of them have been returning from last year. It's with the group East West, which is part of Ananda, and is located in Seattle, Washington, with the Northwest Astrologers. And so this event will also be immediately followed with a special one that they have arranged that'll last from 2 o'clock, that's Pacific time, to 6 o'clock. So if you haven't already signed up, hey, you can register, and there's time, and there'll be details at the half hour. Generally, it's eastwestbook.org or bookshop.com. So get your ready and fly with us. And we will begin introducing these great souls because together we're taking an astrological look at 2022. And the world has been changing. And we're wondering, how are these planets illuminating our life in such a way that we can survive and thrive? Isn't that the essence of living? Yes, we have these issues, but let's find some resolutions. And it's not, yes, we have a tag for it, but there could be a path. There could be some understandings. So it will be a conversation. Okay. Oh, and their particular title is Moving Together Globally with Heart. We're going to hold on to that theme. I'm going to start by introducing Denny Luna. And Denny Luna is an intuitive astrologer, and she is also one that works with businesses and has workshops. She specializes in relationship counseling, and it has a wonderful past experience, and you can find her right at her name, DennyLuna.com. Thank you, Denny. It's really a treat. And Denny's going to host the East West edition coming up, so it'll be grand to meet again. Then after, we also have Justin Crockett, LC, a familiar soul on Talk Cosmos, as he's with our new archetypal symbol starting up next week. And he is a Western Vedic astrologer that's using remedial plant remedies as a follow-up to enhance his consultations. And Justin, do you have something else that you would like to add about that? No. Okay.
No, not particularly.
Thank you. And Justin is, you can find him at justinlc.com. So thank you so much. And our next panelist will be Elizabeth Liz Mouchette. And Liz goes also by that name, but I'm doing this alphabetical for first names, thank you. And you can find her at lizmouchette.com or lightpath.com. And Liz is an intuitive astrologer of Western and a tarot numerologist, counselor. Liz, is there something else you would like to add?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. And then we have Israel Ahose from London. And yes, Israel is a traditional astrologer, but he too, like so many, is eclectic. He uses Vedic, he uses tradition, he has Kabbalah, he has a whole script of different functions that he brings into his astrology. And he is also the president of the Astrological Lodge of London. Yes, thank you very much. And I'm so glad you're in the wee hours there talking to us, and we do appreciate so much. And I'm glad to have this.
I'm a night owl, so it's cool for me.
Oh, ideal. Well, then that's how we're going to make this 2022. Make it work for us. Get that lemonade into lemons into lemonades. Well, thank you. And all right. And then we have also Karen Wonderland. Now, Karen's a Seattle astrologer, and Karen is a business and individual astrologer, practical Uranian astrologer, and does classes and readings. And you can also find her at seattleastrologer.com, I think. Karen at
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just seattleastrologer.com.
Okay, excellent. All right. And then we have just a few more. We have Raphael from Montana. And Raphael is also an eclectic astrologer who actually uses Uranian and a whole host of different facets, Hermetic and horary, into his very spiritually oriented consultations. Everybody here is very spiritually oriented, which is a big theme for this year and an important factor. And he is an author. In fact, several are authors. And he has written End Zone and Hamad Jones novel. And he has an African astrologer letter. And he has two websites, which are, I thought I'd be much more organized, so thank you for bearing with me. The astrologyconsultant.com and the africanastrologer.com. So it's a pleasure. Thank you, Raphael.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Welcome.
Okay. And last but not least is Ray Couture. Now, Ray knew personally the infamous and renowned Dane Rutjar, which we are thankful for. We're glad to have that pipeline because, really the history of astrology is mouth to mouth, and we have become a little bit disjointed. So just that presence alone gives me great thankfulness. And Ray is an Iranian astrologer. He has a large facet of transpersonal astrology. And you can find Ray at the astrologicalperspectives.net. All of the astrologers here will be on the Talk Cosmos website, and you can easily go to the event and find out about it, or else, hey, there's 8 of us. How nice, all 8. Okay, so I really appreciate this. This will be a lot simpler. I'm going to start with Denny, and I'm going to ask Denny and all of you just 2 questions that if you can say it under 2 minutes, that would be great. Brief. How did you get into astrology, and how do you use it, or what's your purpose? So Denny Luna.
All right. So I got into astrology more than 50 years ago, and I was 11 years old and casting my own charts the old-fashioned way. I was really lucky in that I was a part of a scientific family that was very open to astrology. So I didn't have to, try to fit in like a lot of people do when they struggle, who are metaphysical and who are open to psychic energies. So my whole being really wants to do intuitive astrology to help people that maybe didn't have that kind of background and feel a little bit left out, a little bit strange from having to open the gateway to the other side. And what drives me is that. Plus, I love doing synastry and the type of astrology where people are brought together.
Oh, unity. That is really so special. Thank you, Danny. I think. And then we're going to ask Justin. Justin, what brought you to astrology and how are you using it?
Well, I had taken a course with Richard Tarnas and Stanislav Grof, and really resonated with I've had some background education with psychology, and so I really resonated with the archetypal, seeing our world through that lens of archetypes. And so I do a combination of Western and Vedic astrology, and my goal is to help people heal. I think I take a view it through a psychological, therapeutic lens, and helping people understand themselves and self actualize. And so I think healing and some type of, as we say in Vedic astrology, remedies, and helping people heal and maximize their potential. It's what is in their chart, and that's why I do it.
Boy, we have unity and maximizing our gifts. Love it. All right, we will continue with Elizabeth Liz Mouchat. What brought you to astrology and how are you seeing it through?
Well, astrology's always been a part of my life. My maternal grandmother was the biggest influence to me because she started guiding me from what I can remember being about 2 years old to use my intuitive and natural healing abilities. She gave me my first astrology books when I was 10, but we always talked about astrology. And she had a packed 12th house, so she had a lot of secrets about herself. So I never saw her cast her own charts, but she had them, and that it was her handwriting. And she told me to always listen to my ancestors because they would have messages for me. And it's also felt like remembering things from past lives. So it's a whole different process of remembering. And I'm a consulting astrologer and teacher, doing natal astrology, progression, solar arc, synastry, electional astrology, and I'm working on sharpening my skills for orrery. And so I'm a perpetual student of astrology, but I just love it.
Thank you. So we have the practical feeding from the spiritual, the whole gamut. We're moving on. This is good. All right. If I can remember, Karen, I think you're next in the alphabet. Karen Wennerlind, what brought you to astrology, this great art, and how are you doing with it? What are you using?
Well, I came because I'm a control freak and I needed to figure out just what was going on and figure out how to make it different, how to change it up. And so it was all about me. It wasn't about anybody else. It was like, I got to figure this thing out. And so and I'm a business person. And I see the world through practical business applications. And it's like, how do you do something is how you are. So bringing to me the congruence of the self, the individual, the interior, and with the exterior. How are you behaving in the world as opposed to who you are inside? And helping people and business, especially business people, be more congruent so that they can be more consistently in the present and in the flow of their life rather than in resistance to it.
That's a good value too, to have this working with it, making lemons, working with it. And my alphabet is lousy. I had such trouble as a kid. Israel, we didn't forget I. Please tell us how you got into astrology. I think it's a different technique or a different angle, and what you're doing with it, please.
Yeah. Well, I used to be a boxer, so coming into astrology was my boxing career wasn't, going so well. And then also as well, my mother passed as well during that same period. So I was kind of going through. I went through a stage of like 6 months, a year, where I was kind of feeling lost. I didn't know where I was going, what to do. And here is where I found astrology. It found me. It was still a bit of a difficult transition for me because all I knew up to that point was boxing. That was my life. Um, but I could see the light was shining in that particular direction. And the moment I recall, even 1 year, I went on the internet. I wanted to treat myself for my birthday one weekend, and I saw an astrology. It was actually a tarot weekend held by Liz Green, and it started from there. I went to her tarot workshop, and she also obviously told me that she teaches astrology. So I signed up, and this was like just over 20 years ago, and I never looked back since. And since then, I also did other astrology courses with the likes of Robert Zola, Robert Schmidt. So I combined the traditional, medieval, and psychological astrology. I combined them together. I also teach as well, so I have a number of clients as well in my circle that I take through the different levels of astrology. And essentially, my purpose is, whether it's my students or whether the clients who come to me for consultations, my purpose is to use astrology as a guide. I feel that we are all here um, for a purpose, and astrology helps to shed light on what that purpose is and how one may go about fulfilling it.
Oh, thank you so much, Israel. And it is true, this personal process of revealing to ourselves and therefore validating others, really crucial.
Yeah.
Well, we have our 2R friends here, Raphael. Raphael, I think your name is next. How did you begin with astrology, and how are you using it? Please.
Well, in 1972, I started studying the martial arts, and that led to my practice of meditation and self-discipline. And later in the same decade, I began to study Torah, Talmud, Kabbalah. I was able to find a group of people who were studying these esoteric teachings, and I also was able to meet a hermetician from the Brotherhood of Light who came to one of our services on a Sabbath day. And that was when my desire to study astrology blossomed. So I was working at IBM at the time, and there were two astrologers there who were my brothers in the organization, the movement. It was an African-based organization, but we were students of the Torah. And they taught me the math. They gave me the math basics. From that point on, I began to read a lot of books, as most of us have done, and take a lot of courses. I had a chance to study with Zoltan Mason on Saturdays at his store in New York. So I had a chance to meet a lot of astrologers, and I just practiced. And my way of using astrology, considering what Brother Israel and Justin said about self-empowerment and help people become the best that they are, I'm kind of paraphrasing, is dedicated to self-realization. And so whenever I meet with a client, my desire is to assist and be the light, so to speak, to allow them to rise into a higher appreciation of what they are able to do and the limitless possibilities that lay around them.
Well, thank you. It is intriguing to hear of the intellectual, if I might say, somewhat, that curiosity that wants to find out and piece it together, that's looking for the belief patterns, and that you're able to share a light. That's really important to the whole energy of astrology. last and not least again is
Uh,
Ray Couture. What brought you to astrology, and how are you implementing and using it and living?
Well, how about unmute myself? We'll start with that.
Good beginning. Yeah.
I got out of the military back in just around the Uranus-Pluto conjunction, which will give you a reason why I got out. And I ended up in Berkeley, California, and I met this guy who seemed to know more about me than he ought to, and I was kind of upset about that because I just I didn't want to believe it. So I asked him how he did it. He said astrology, and I said, "You're nuts. Wait a minute, you're crazy. I just got out of the military where the government is trying to tell me what time to get up, what to do, everything about my life. And now you want me to start following, getting my life guided by balls of gas and rocks in the sky?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, you're on."
Well,
And so I figured that if he could do that, if he could use those balls of gas in the sky to figure out how to talk to me without ever knowing anything about me and helping me out, then I had to do it too. So after a couple of years, we started teaching classes together. And during that interim, though, I was involved in radio a lot. As a radio personality, I guess you want to call it, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I had an opportunity then to do research on astrology because people asked me, "Oh, so you're playing with astrology, are you? What are you going to do with it?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know that much about it, but bring us some astrologers." So I created a show, and I ended up meeting Dane Rudjar in the process. And after the show, he and I got together and talked about some various kinds of things. And eventually he asked me over the next 2 or 3 years to work with him in some kind of way. And I didn't know what way that would be, but he just kept telling me to read his books and do that, and then we would talk about it. That would be the easiest way for him anyway. For me, it was the most difficult way. But all in all, eventually he asked me to open up a bookstore for focusing on showcasing his work and so forth. So I did that, and after a certain amount of time, I moved on and went into more of astrology than ever. So what I try to do with astrology is over the last 50 years, especially in the last 20 or so, I noticed that it's not possible to answer people's questions about how can you be a success without bringing in the idea that I have to ask the question about, well, what kind of success do you mean? You want to be the best, bank robber on the block? You want to be on the horizontal relationship we all have, or the biological level and the biospheric level, or do you want to rise above that and gain some spiritual strength and so forth? So that led me eventually to transpersonal astrology, because the people in the last 20 or 30 years are born at a time when the karmic load is that these people, you and I and others, are here because the world is needing of us, and our own karmic force and own dharma says we're here to try to help people survive this transition from one kind of a world, from one kind of people to another.
Yes, it is true. Being part of the river, just getting into the river, that's what it's all about. So we are. Thank you so much. And I will say for myself, I'm Sue Rose Minahan, and I started because, it's hard to know where you start, but I can distinctly becoming aware of astrology was in a conversation with my mother. It was when I was in my 20s, which was also during the 70s. And we talked at length, and I couldn't follow her at all. So I had to read the books to understand. And of course, it made it available to me that out of the oneness that I always saw life, like anything is possible for anybody, just give them the magic, not like Alice in Wonderland, but something. But instead, it was like, no, there's individuality. We're like plants. We have different recipes. Some need a lot of sun, some need shade, some need to be a big tree. I mean, there's all kinds of formulas, strengths and weaknesses. And it made me understand the psychology of people and understand them much better. And how I'm using it. And it was a hard sell, the whole thing, because I was raised to thinking that I was an agnostic. I mean, I said atheist at first. Boy, I'm right there. And I thought, well, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe I'm an agnostic. And now I'm a full-blown, well, I got little people everywhere, right? All kinds of guides, lots of guides. So at any rate, because we are spirit in a body. And how there is this transition and there is this communication, and how I see it is it's a boy, I had how I saw it. Well, it's answering, it's looking at this moment to some of the past the cliches. It seems like astrology gets hung up with like conversations at large, and it happens to be the negative. Maybe they think this is superficial, so that's everything. No, it's not. There's other layers. There's other depths of understanding something. And so that's part of it, is to really get into part of this transition, yes, to help communicate. And anyway, we'll leave it at that, because it's supposed to be 2 minutes and I'm probably over. Okay. So let's one more. I think we have, oh gosh, I didn't put it up. We have a chart, and maybe I'll have to do that. In the meantime, if you remember how you went, if each one of you could talk about, just in about a minute, what you think the theme, and you could use either the global chart. Oh, is it that time? Is it that time to take a break? Oy vey, it is. Okay, we are taking a break, and we'll start when we return. This is the Equinox Astrology Day, March 20th, with East-West Astrologers Plus, and the 5th season of Talk Cosmos. And thank you so much. We'll be right back. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the yin period of Pisces, ruled modernly by Neptune and by Jupiter in traditional astrology of the ancients. By leaving a cycle based on the equality of all humans and brilliancy, Pisces concludes the 12 signs that energetically encompass the entirety of the universe, where humans have no control. As a mutable water sign represented by 2 fish swimming in opposite directions of the forces of life, we experience in Pisces the collective unconscious energy of the unknown. Intuitive, psychic Pisces completes the seed cycle, initiated with Aries' willful separation from the Piscean womb.
Celebrate World Astrology Day with a first-class program, Moving Together Globally with Heart. On the March 20 Spring Equinox, Talk Cosmos teams with East-West Global Astrologers for a heart-based look at 2022, complete with a lively Zoom show, celebrity recordings, and special bonuses. Topics include purpose, career, relationships, finance, health, and wellness. As the world maneuvers from COVID hibernation into birthed spiritual awakenings, and you will discover how the planets illuminate our way forward as we care for each other and rejuvenate ourselves. Celebrating with you in style on World Astrology Day is a Talk Cosmos fascinating 8 astrologer panel, and when they're finished, experience East-West Center's first-class Zoom program. To register, go online at eastwestbookshop.com for the Sunday, March 20 program, Moving Together Globally with Heart, from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. The entire event costs $25. Find out how the world is shifting and survive and thrive for for spring 2022.
Talk Cosmos brings you leading edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Hi, it's Dr. Laura Tad here to let you know I have an upcoming online course in personal mythology. In this course, you will explore the stories that you carry and how they impact your life. Some of these stories you have unconsciously inherited from your ancestors. Others are more culturally tied. As you unpack these stories, you will come to see which ones support you and your highest potential, and which ones you've outgrown and could use a rewrite. Class starts in April. Space is limited. For more information and to register, please go to my website, mythicsky.com. I hope to see you there.
Bringing good vibes to the Puget Sound and the world. Alternative Talk 1150.
Sue, you're muted.
Hello, here we are. We're beginning again. Thank you. And if Nathan, if you could pull up that chart for the spring equinox today, and I'll give the times out. It was for the world chart, which is always at the GMT or the UT, which is the Greenwich Mean Time Zone. The sun at 0 degrees was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3:33 minutes, 3 o'clock, 33 minutes, 15 seconds in the afternoon for March 20th. But for the United States, it's in the morning at 11 o'clock, 33 minutes and 15 seconds a.m. And that's only because it allows people to think of it as a nation. So, and I have here the first file that people can look at later, because we will have a lot of strange little points that you may not be familiar with. But if you want to look at these charts, if you aren't listening on a podcast and doing it on YouTube, you can see that we have some dwarf planets that we're involving perhaps, and centaurs, asteroids, and points. So in astrological terms, we won't really elaborate about those, but we're going to be talking more holistically. But still, they may come up in the conversation, and they're very important. Everything has its purpose. They have, and that's why we study, right? Okay, so if we can go to the next slide, Nathan, of the dual, or maybe I'm the one. Okay, here we are. Can everybody see that okay? So what I'm going to ask of the 8 is, in a minute, a theme that speaks to you about some importance that this year, looking at it as a seed chart for the whole year, it is the beginning of the year. Many people feel it, 0 degrees Aries. It begins the Zodiac and the chart. So Denny, I'll let you bravely begin again. What would you say?
Well, it's funny that Ixion got in there as a dwarf planet, because for me, this is a seed. It is a time of people coming together and seeding a new energy that's intergenerational. We were looking at the high frequencies of the different planets and the higher octaves of this and that, and keep going. And Sue, you and I hit on Haumea, which is birth. And so to me, this is a grand rebirthing. I'm very pleased to have on this show and the one following with East West, kind of a look back to the roots of astrology with people like Dane Rudyard's protege, Ray, right there. And also we've got the man who put together the harmonic concordance, which had 14 million people meditating all at once in this beautiful configuration in the sky. Princeton University did some Earth measurements on that and said that the frequency of the Earth shifted during that meditation measurably. So looking forward, the great energy on the show, wonderful exchange here. And what can we birth? We're birthing.
Oh, I love it. And what year was the convergence again?
It was
1987 or
2000
2?
It was 2003. So the
Okay.
convergence, I'm
2003.
sorry, convergence was 1987, and the concordance was 2003. So I think one of you tried to correct
Gotcha.
me.
No,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's beautiful. Just kind of lodge in, with all the, it's good to know some of this. Good. Thank you so much. Justin, how would you like to contribute?
Well, just really quickly here, because I know we don't have a lot of time. I see, looking at this chart, we see the ascendant of both of these is two signs that are ruled by Mercury, Gemini and Virgo. So because in these charts, the Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, and Neptune are square Gemini, and then of course we've got Mars, Venus, Juno, and Saturn also in an air sign. It seems to be a lot of evaluation going on, and the air signs are really affecting about what we're thinking about going forward. There's an evaluation and analysis, a very mental looking chart. And I think as we look forward, as a collective, we've all had this collective experience. And so we're, the barn door has been open for all of us now, and we're all still going through a collective experience about evaluation and where do we go next, and sort of this challenge to transformation. So I think this is really, it's really, as we visualize towards a new cycle, it's taking a holistic approach, and it's asking us how we think about that, and so there's a focus on the mental aspects here.
Good. Thank you so much. And then Liz, please, Elizabeth.
Well, and I agree with all that air energy that Justin was talking about. To me, it's like communication and listening skills are very important to make sure that people understand what's being said, but then that you're also hearing it correctly. It feels like 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or back but slightly sideways is happening at this time. And global cooperation, and think globally as well as locally.
Okay. Then we will go to Israel. I know my alphabet.
Yeah. Just like the previous speakers have said, Justine and Karen, I feel it's a very strong mercurial chart. I'm looking at the Greenwich Mean Time one for the UK, and it's Virgo rising, and equally also for the Washington, it's Gemini. So we can see very strong Mercury, but Mercury's placement in Pisces, I feel it looks one way, but it seems to be going another. We have to be extremely mindful here, but something is suggesting to me that there is a huge sense of compassion because the Mercury is also conjunct Jupiter as well. And I feel that is going to be a real strong theme that we have to, be faced with over the course of the next year. Things are not going to be what we think they are. They're going to look like they're going one direction one moment, and due to the energy of Pisces, Mercury being in Pisces, it's going to be swimming in another. So we have to be open, we have to be fluid, we have to be compassionate, and we have to look deeper than the rational or the intellect approach to things. We got to go deeper.
Bridget.
Pisces wants us to expand and be deeper.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No.
Yes, indeed. And it really helps that theme that Denny has put for the global
Yeah.
looking at things with a heart-based soul.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Karen, what would you say, please? Your perspective. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be, it can be something different.
Yeah.
Or the same.
So it's an adjunct. So yes, everything everybody said so far about the high conversation, Mercury talking, Gemini talking. But the opportunity to listen and to listen to international voices that are unfamiliar, voices that haven't been known before, so that it's like, oh, this person is me. And certainly with the president of Ukraine, he has become a star through his use of voice and his presence, and it shows it's a demonstration of the power of one's voice in being able to make a difference in how you speak and how you are, and how you create your connection with other people. Um, uh, Becoming really aware, I think, with this, of the judgments that we have towards particular ideas that we have held. It's like our firmly held ideas are being challenged. And that's a toughie, but a necessary thing to go through our own growth process.
Decondition. Yes.
Yeah. This
Good.
is a great opportunity for that.
Okay. And Raphael, what would you like to present? And we'll go back. This is just to get an icebreaker here, so that we each say, that's what I see. And we can go, okay, fine. So yes, Raphael.
So regarding the Aries ingress for the US, you have 4 mutable signs on the 4 angles. So looking at periodic fluctuations, constant change, and the requirement to be able to adapt to change, because there's lots of it. The Mercury Jupiter in Pisces, you have either blue smoke and smoke mirrors, or you also have, you are also looking at greater communication, with Mercury being the messenger of the gods, communication, the link between soul and personality. Mercury has a lot to do with that esoterically. And with Jupiter there's a possibility of greater mindfulness. And yet those 2 planets are combining all 4 angles of the horoscope in the 10th house, which is governed by the leadership. So look at the Gemini, the arm, the upper arm where the deltoid is the area where the jab goes. So in terms of what's going on with the situation,
Just
with
one.
the
Yeah, we
health
don't need a
concern,
whole thing. Just like I think that's
right.
good. Yeah, that's good. Thank you so much. I mean, if you feel good about it, because we're just, this is like a snapshot. Pardon me again, I don't always express. All right, then Ray, what's your snapshot? Now I'm understanding.
Well, let me
excellent.
hang on a second. Let me find my camera. Let's see. Snapshot. Well, looking at the spring equinox chart from the Washington, D.C. perspective, you notice everything is above the horizon, and the horizon is that line that goes vertical across from the rising of Gemini to the descendant of, or the 7th house cusp in Sagittarius. Everything except the moon is above that. And that upper end is the objective reality, which says basically, with the first planet up there in the upper half is Pluto, an intense need to eliminate everything that is obsolete about what we think of ourselves and what we think of our ability, and the need to really come together and participate as a species unit on the planet, rather than a bunch of diverse, spread out individual people, not particularly related to each other at all in various kinds of ways. And the moon, of course, in the bottom, mundane astrology is about the everyday kind of stuff like politics and religion and stuff. So the moon represents the people in this case. So it's in a particular part of the chart that has to do with the people need to speak.
Okay.
So that's my
That's
take.
good. Very good. Thank you. I'll go back and I'll just finish up with my own, which is pretty simple. Why isn't it going back? Oh, because I'm not doing it right. Okay. Thank you. And I suppose what I was looking at is really this idea that we're leaving a womb of I'm thinking of the Piscean to the Aries energy, that we're taking from it some kind of seed that we've harbored from it, and we have an opportunity to really launch it, to put it in some soil, and to hopefully find a community with it and nurture it that way. So it is asking people to be brave, to step out, and I love all the comments people have commented, because they bring up the fundamental thoughts of that it is mental, and that, but to expand beyond what we recognize. So thank you, because of the cliches, right? It's not just what are we communicating from spirit to manifestation. Thank you. Okay. Well, we have some time here to just exchange ideas on this meaningfulness. And I'll throw out a couple of questions, and the taker, be bold. You can choose as you want. But for instance, like opportunities or challenges to find this radical individuality for our authentic self.
What?
Where could that be? Or how can we do that?
Well, the period of time is not necessarily one of achieving that radical uniqueness. It's to recognize that life isn't working the way I want to, and paying attention to what it is that's the next thing. When I look at this chart, it's about an unfoldment that's happening. It's like growing awareness, more awareness, more awareness, and undergoing a conversation with yourself to go as far as your bravery will take you.
Yes. And I guess when I say individual, radical, in a sense that there is this Uranian and Aquarian energy, and we may not be ready to jump out and start our own band and travel, but we, like you say, it is a process. It begins with that. Justin, I know you were interested in some of the dwarf planets like Pholus, and they're down there at the chart. I had them, and if you have one chart or the other, if people want me to bring up one chart or the other, let me know.
No, I just really quickly, the Juno, which represents marriage or commitment, is conjunct Saturn there, and I think that really spoke to earlier what one of the gals was talking about, these commitment to partnerships in the collective right now, and so this is a real positive aspect. This is a really great time for us to really pay attention to our relationships in the collective. However, what jumps out when you say challenges is that all that Aquarian energy is squared Uranus. We got that Mars, Venus, Juno, Saturn, all squared Uranus between the 9th and the 11th house. And so I think, and because we've got these nodes going through the signs and resources this year, I think, again, it does come back to relationships in the collective and how we see them as resources this year. And this is really the time to, come out of the barn now from this pandemic and really build some relationships. It's a really great time to cement some relationships, but it's going to take some transformation and a holistic way of looking at as we move forward.
that communication, yes, with Mercury. And I don't mean to be one that usually calls on people, but I realize we have not yet unified as a whole group. So if somebody has a thought, just jump in. Otherwise, I
Yeah.
might just.
Yeah,
Somebody-
I just wanted to add to what Justin said there, because just observing the UK spring equinox chart for Greenwich, it's Virgo rising, and the chart ruler, as we are all aware that chart rulers are very important, is in Pisces in the 7th house. So just adding to what Justin said there in terms of the relationship. What does the relationship look like? Because and I feel for the whole world, even though I may be speaking majority from a UK standpoint, but the whole world, I think we are at a very crucial time right now in the world, especially with what's going on in Europe, because that is it's having a domino effect throughout the whole world in some way, shape, or form, economically, financially, and so on. And I feel this is a chart that is really telling us or showing us, who are we? Because it's very easy to, the 7th house is the house that we tend to project onto other people, people who mirror us. And it can be very easy to kind of see we've got the ruler of the ascendant in the 7th house. So some things, it's very common for people to perhaps look at somebody or something outside of ourselves and say, well, that's not me. And I think the chart is telling us that, no, that is you. That is a reflection of who you are. So looking at the UK chart, it's saying like, well, that ascendant, because we tend to identify more with the ascendant and project on the 7th house, it's letting us know that, well, the ascendant and the 7th house is one. The ruler of the ascendant being in the 7th house, you are actually one. You're a reflection of each other. And what may look like, oh, it's outside there, that's your business. No, it's everybody's business also.
Yes.
Everybody's business.
And so yeah.
And Ray, I hear you. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you also look at this, the whole issue of the idea of transformation that has been talked about so far a few times here and mentioned in various ways, but the transformation that this chart is talking about is something that is really more than just changing jobs or changing your name or changing even, whether you're married or divorced or this or that, changing. You can't, this is not little change. This is a huge amount of change. It's not necessarily going to come down in a few little drops here and there. It might take, if you look at the distance between the sun and Chiron. Chiron is, as Liz Green would say, the stimulation to the will to live. And the sun at the 0 degrees of Aries is by progression. The sun moves by progression 1 degree each year. This is an effect that is going to take us 10 years to really reorganize ourselves as a people. Who are we, I think Israel was saying, is really true. Because the collective, the relationship that Justin was talking about between the individual and the collective, is a relationship.
Thank you, Ray. You got it. I know, and unfortunately, I looked at the time because we have Liz and Raphael and all these folks, and it's true. We have a quick moment, and so basically, Liz. Do you have a quick word?
I just wanted to say that Saturn, which represents authority, is square to the nodes, so it's in the bending. So, and it would be a south node that last passed over Saturn. So it's something that comes from a past, so that there's going to be change in authority.
These themes of listening to other people, knowing ourselves, on and on. Raphael, have you got like a sentence? Where did he go? Oh, there you are, right in the middle. Raphael, can you hear me?
We use
Do
astrology
you have
all the
like
time. Yes.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
thank you,
okay,
everybody.
go ahead. You're running out of time, so I have nothing.
We are, darn it. Well, this has been very fulfilling to realize that we have commitment to relationship, ourself, that relationship with everything, spirit, ourself, the other that we may not like. Hey, what part of us don't we like? Let's use our heart. Yes, thank you, Denny, for bringing that theme. Thank you, Denny. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Raphael. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Karen. And thank you, Israel. This is beautiful. Go to Talk Cosmos and connect to East West. They're going to be on in just a second. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic cycles of astrology. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.